is that the Jazz announced a change in the front office. Dennis Lindsay and Justin Zanik have both been promoted. Dennis Lindsay now becomes Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations. And Dennis Lindsay, or I should say Justin Zanik, now officially has the title of General Manager, which was previously held by Dennis Lindsay.
Yeah, and I mean, the biggest number one priority, the reason why the Jazz did these things is to keep their front office intact. You know, Justin Zanik had been was the kind of the GM in waiting in Milwaukee, spent a year over there, was basically in line to become general manager there before it didn't work out because of their kind of weird ownership situation. They kind of have 3 co-owners of that team, which makes decision-making difficult. Yep. So he returned back to Utah under the same assistant general manager role that he had before he left. And then he was a big name in another GM search this year, this time for Philadelphia 76ers general manager, the job that ended up going to Elton Brand. Now, I don't know, from what I understood, that interview went really well with the Sixers, and the Brand choice was kind of a surprise. I don't know if it was even a mutual decision there. I don't know what happened. But clearly there had been lots of interest in Justin Zanik as a GM in waiting, or GM for another team out there, one of the 29 other NBA teams. Kind of a similar type executive, a guy who's been named in a lot of other front office roles. Gerson Rojas just got hired by the Minnesota Timberwolves. Yep. And it was kind of clear that Justin Zanik might be next, right? And so the Jazz said, hey, why don't we keep you in state, with the Utah Jazz, with the organization that you've been with? We want to keep you around. We'll give you that GM title. We'll give you that GM salary, and make you happy here because you're a big part of what we do.
I've got my thoughts on it, and I'll share those. But I'm curious, Andy, as somebody who's as well plugged in with the Jazz front office as anybody here in the market, what do you think changes?
I don't think a ton. Dennis Lindsay is still the executive vice president. That's still the key decision maker for the decisions that I think Jazz fans care about: who gets drafted, which free agents they sign, who's the major trades, those kind of things all still going to go through Dennis Lindsay. There's no question. Justin Zanik, I think, has been a huge voice in what decisions the Jazz have made in the past and will continue to be a huge voice. I don't think he will be the final decision maker on most of the stuff. I could see him getting honestly, oftentimes they get assigned like the second draft pick in a draft, or maybe looking around the league, talking with people, doing the initial kind of legwork about getting deals done, bringing draft prospects in for drafts draft workouts like we have today. Those kind of roles are kind of the day-to-day things that a general manager does. And then honestly just manages a larger staff. Back in the Kevin O'Connor days, there were like 4 or 5 people working for the Jazz front office. It was a tight-knit group.
Right.
Now you've got 20 to 30 people.
Right.
You've got an analytics department. You've got a scouting department. You've got a
international department.
You've got people who deal with just the agents. You've got people who deal with just the players' families. You've got people who find new places for players to live when they move in and come back and leave. And all these different liaisons, all these different personnel means that you just need to have more managers and need to have more people doing those kind of jobs. So certainly this means Justin Zanik gets more power, more responsibility in the front office, but I don't think from like a Jazz fan point of view that much at all changes today.
It doesn't change the culture of how the Jazz are building this team necessarily. It doesn't change their approach or the way they've kind of been patient with how they've done things. I do, and I know this for sure, is that, and we've talked about to people around the draft. I remember when Justin Zanik got hired, talking to Jazz people who said that Justin Zanik made it a lot easier to get in touch with people than it previously had been.
Yeah.
Because he was a former agent, and he has those types of relationships that even Dennis Lindsay does not have. Mm-hmm. So he's got more relationships with people around the league, even having more recently been in a different front office because he was in Milwaukee a couple of years ago and now being back, probably has some more recent relationships with people than even Dennis Lindsay does. And Dennis Lindsay certainly has his relationships, but Zanik probably has even different ones.